up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Limelight, where the dopeness continues, and we're going to keep it going. Today, we have a special guest. I love him so dearly, very dear to the heart. So we're going to introduce Eddie. He is a producer out in LA right now, but he's making his rounds, and he's going to drop some gems just for you. So with no further ado, welcome Eddie to the front and center. Hey, boo.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you doing today? What's going on?
I'm good. How are you? How are you?
I am amazing. So first, as I say to everybody, thank you so much for doing this interview. I mean, it's going to be such a pleasure to talk to you. I feel like we're doing some catching up right now, and I haven't spoken to you for such a long time, so I'm super excited to do this interview.
No, thank you for having me. We really haven't spoken in a long time since you used to take my Oreos in the 5th grade and then played me, but it's cool.
You gotta stop, Izzy. So for people who don't know that, we really go way back. I mean, we went to elementary together, and we've been attached since then. I mean, honestly, we haven't spoken too much, but again, in spirit, we are attached, and that's just how it's been. So, all right, let's just jump right into it. So, Mr. Producer, let's start. First of all, so you're a producer. Are you doing reality TV producing? Are you doing news producing? Kind of tell the folks what kind of producing you're doing and what type of producer you are.
So I'm a reality producer at the moment, but ultimately, of course, like everybody else in the industry, I do want to switch over into scripted. And right now I'm field producing in reality.
Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between, reality TV versus like scripted?
So a lot of people ask
think, and not to cut you off, but a lot of people think reality TV is scripted. So that's why I asked that question.
Reality TV isn't as scripted. Like any conversation, you have to have your story points in order to keep things moving along. But with reality, it's more of the formatting of story points in order to help keep a story going, as opposed to scripted where you have exactly what you're supposed to say.
Gotcha. Okay. So if somebody, kind of wanted to get on the path, what should they do? Like, what has your journey been thus far? Not even just in film producing, but starting up the ranks. Like, start from the beginning.
Got you. So everyone's journey is different. So my journey, I've been involved in the arts since I was in middle school. So I went to the Mildred Avenue Middle School in Mattapan, and there I was like huge in like the drama club over there. And then I went to Boston Arts Academy where I was a theater major. And then from there went to Columbia College Chicago to study theater and entertainment marketing. And then transferred from there and graduated at UMass Amherst. Now at UMass, I did some things in order to shake up the culture there a little bit, just because I did not feel it was serving the full demographic of students that they had. And then graduated, moved out to LA, and I knew that I wanted to create. I knew that I wanted to create change, and ultimately I really care about people. So for me, it was important that when I meet people, that their stories being told, and that we're creating stories that showcase everyone in positive light. I started out, my first job was at Larry King. I was a production assistant there. I literally got water, moved set pieces back and forth, and that was my job. From that point, I then grew within the industry, and I skipped a few steps along the way, just hard work and dedication. So I went from being a production assistant to an associate producer, and then did some logging, and then jumped from there. Did a bunch of other shows, did some stuff for OWN, MTV, Netflix, and then jumped to field producer, which I am now.
Let's go back just a little bit. The duties of a production assistant is just kind of just assistant to make sure everything is flowing well.
Yes. So there are multiple. So you can be an office PA, you could be a field PA. I was a field PA. I was also an office PA. So no matter where you put me, I was gonna sink or swim, I'm gonna swim. But I'm way better in the field than I am in the office. So like for me, it was about like if I'm in the office, making sure that like receipts are getting done and that like lunch orders are correct, and literally the minimal things that people don't think about. Those are the things that actually keep things flowing. And so like that's what I did, like any and everything that I was asked, like washing someone's car, I would bring someone's car to a car wash. Like you have to do what you have to do in order to survive.
Wow. So, I mean, but like, we kind of were talking off camera. Is there a fine line of, wanting to help, wanting to do your job, but then being kind of overbearing and just being in everyone's face?
Yeah, of course. So naturally me as a person, I'm very much so on the like quiet, reserved, private side, which is like professionally, which is way different from me personally, where personally it's like I'm in your face, but then I still want my space. So and I take a little bit of that and I add that to, my career. So like what worked best for me is that like I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do the things that like I know would help move things forward, but I don't want to be overbearing. I don't want to be and do too much. So it's about like, hey, I'm here. I have like these three things left to do. If you have more stuff for me, like I can take it on, as opposed to waiting to the very last minute and then like needing stuff. That way I'm not in everyone's face. I'm so busy, and then you can just drop stuff off that you need done.
Nice. And so I hear you when you said, you did your job well because you were just always on it and you kind of went above and beyond sometimes to do, what you needed to do to make yourself memorable. But what do you think it was or is about you that you were able to just keep climbing up the ranks? Because I mean, I feel like the TV industry, me being in it too, is so tough. It's so cutthroat. It's so tough. So how do you think you're just continuing to, get to the next level while skipping some levels, it seems like?
I've I've associated myself with really great people. So a lot of the people that I've had the opportunity to become aligned with are people who want to see me grow and want to see me thrive and want to see me succeed. Um, and they're also people who got to know me and my work ethic. So it was a great opportunity for me to be able to like fully like be myself, because it's ultimately I at the end of the day I only want to be myself. Like I want to laugh, I want to joke, but I want to get the most beautiful product that I can get. And that for me is like what it is. Like I will go to the end of the earth in order to get what I need, but I also want to feel like loved and appreciated and respected. And the people that I've met and I've had the opportunity to work with really give me that. So that that is what I feel as though keeps me motivated and keeps me moving, because it is a industry of who you know. Um, and so, like, of course, there are those times where I have to stand up for myself, but it's about having to stand up for yourself and articulating how you are feeling properly, as opposed to, having to snap and like go off on somebody just because. There are times where I had to bite my tongue, and there are times where I had to be like, we're going to speak up. And like, there's a line, and it's about knowing that line and knowing how to respect that line, but also letting people know how to respect you.
All right, I love that. And so, moving from the PA position, you went to the AP position, which is associate
I
producer
did.
position. And then from there, you went to field producer, in which is the position you're sitting at now.
Yes.
How do they all differ? Because I feel like a lot of people kind of just put producing all under one umbrella, and there are different mediums to it. So can you explain to us what are the differences?
Yeah. So associate producing is very much so tied to logistics. So it's very hands-on with you have a little more interaction with cast, but your job is about the venue and the placement. And like, if you're watching, for example, if you're watching Love and Hip Hop, it's about like you seeing that restaurant, knowing that the associate producer or the segment producer, which they're very synonymous and very close, um, they had to like go out and like scout this place, speak to the owner, get the logistics, deal with legal. Like that is an associate producer. You're doing a lot of the the digging and the sourcing of locations and of activities in order to like keep your cast having fun. And then film producing is pretty much knowing your story points and like the things that like are happening in your cast lives and making sure that these things are tracking throughout in order for you to help frame the story. That way it makes sense for the audience. So then it's like listening to what they're saying, going back, rereading like your notes that you take throughout the day, and then pushing those things forward. And then like speaking with your cast, like, hey, like we noticed that these things are happening in your life. We would like to follow this. Is that cool? And then just like having them talk about it that way, there's a consistent thread going throughout the entire story.
Understood. And so as the associate producer, you said one of your things is like location and scouting. Okay, so say for instance, you get a job in like a new city, right? And you get this position. I mean, are you just like Googling things to do around the city? Are you just, and then you call them up and say, hey, like I'm working with this, like can we come and film there, yada yada? Is like that, that's how it works?
Exactly like that. Like Google, Yelp are my friends. And like, it's people view the television industry and just see money. So a lot of people are fine with it. A lot of people want that exposure for their business because they know that it'll be a bigger thing. And so like while they're fine with it, people also ultimately want money at the end of the day. So it's just about like, spending the coin.
That's what I was going to ask. So like, are you guys paying to use their spot, or it's just like, well, it's kind of like product placement in our show?
It's not product placement. Some places you do have to pay for. Some people only want the exposure for their business because they know that it'll make their business look better and more inclusive. Because what it is that, like, say I'm watching a show that someone else did in LA, I'm looking at these locations that they're filming at, and I'm like, okay, that place looked really nice. My cast would like that place. So now I'm gonna call and I'm gonna try to get that place, which then helps them generate more business, more of a buzz, because it's a different demographic than what they just had. And so it's all this like chain of working together. But at the same time, these people really want like business and money. And, we're paying for our cast to eat and dine there or whatever they're doing there. We pay for them. And then, on the other end, it's like sometimes we negotiate a deal where our crew gets to eat there as well.
And so, a lot of the times, like, let's take Love and Hip Hop for an example. Like, when they have meetups and then things go just crazy in the place, right? People are fighting, things are throwing. Are you guys paying for that?
I how can I say this? I do not work on shows at that capacity or that caliber. I choose a more peaceful route. Just because those shows are a little too chaotic for me as a person. And knowing myself and knowing like what's good for me, I choose to stay away from shows like that. So I have no experience on that.
How are you tracking all the details of their lives? Like, I mean, are you guys following them around 24/7? Is it like they just call you and say, hey, this is what happened and we want to talk about this, or a mixture of both? How does that work?
It's a mix. So when we have a show, we also a lot of our cast already have things happening. Like we're already tracking things that are happening in their lives and things that are ongoing. And then for us, it's really about like as things are unfolding, things happen in the moment. And so when things happen in the moment, you're finding out new details and you're like things are opening up as they are just living their lives, and things that they may not notice as being pertinent or like huge in their lives because it's like an everyday thing to them, but it's huge to the audience. So like, and it's us looking at it as an audience and knowing like, hey, that's really interesting. Let's show people that.
Has there ever been a time, and you don't have to say the show, you don't even have to say the network, but has there ever been a time where, you were working on a show and, you're again following people's lives, and you came across something that was maybe like if we put this out, it can really either damage their credibility or anything, and you guys just the human part worked and kicked in, and you guys just kind of said no, we're not going to go that route.
I mean, all the time. That's why we have editors. So there are things, it's like some things they're really interesting, but it's like they don't help us move the story. They don't help tell the story that we are trying to ultimately create when we work with our cast. So
do you feel like there's ever been a time when it was the opposite, where you felt like, well, kind of similar situation where it's like you felt like you shouldn't run it, but they did anyway, and it pissed you off because you felt in your heart it should have never been ran?
not for me personally. I have heard that on, other sets from other people, but not me personally.
Mhm.
For me, the shows that, I work on, our cast, I really enjoy all my cast members. Like I had to like think about them. I like saw them like all down the line for the like past 5 years. I really enjoyed them all only because they all brought something different and they all like showcase things. And it's like they're all really great people despite what you see on camera. Like they're all really nice people. They just as we all are people, they have their own stuff that they're dealing with.
For people again wanting to get into this industry, right? It's like they have to start as a production assistant, or is that just the route that you went, but you don't necessarily have to start as a production assistant?
I would recommend starting as a production assistant only because if you are trying to get into the industry, you might learn that there are different routes that you would like to take. So, like, as a production assistant, I learned about lighting, I learned about audio, I learned about camera, I learned about um, the office side of production, and then I also learned about producing. I chose producing as my route because I like people and I like their stories. I like to know what people are experiencing and what helped them move forward. So that's why I chose that route. Um, but if I didn't choose that route, I probably would have went audio. Um,
Really?
yeah, it's they have a very interesting job. I for sure would have went audio.
That's interesting. Okay. It's funny because I always felt like I would try to stay away from audio. I don't
Audio
mm,
audio has it great. They make so much money.
really.
Audio makes bank.
I had no idea. Okay. We probably have to get somebody that's in audio, talk to them, because I mean I really had no idea.
Yeah, audio is really really cool, and like it's more of a because I just want to. I'm the type of person I really, as I got older, I realized I'm more of an omnivert. So it's I know how to turn it on, but I'd rather not turn it on. Let's leave it off. So for me, it's like I get to do my job and go home. Great. And audio gets to do their job and go home.
That's fair. Okay, that makes sense. And you spoke a little bit about money. So do you feel in your field, again, you don't have to tell us the numbers, but
Mhm.
do you feel being a field producer, should you get into that field if you want money?
It's great money you make great money in the industry,
Even
but
being in LA?
yeah, it's like the money is decent, but there's no stability. So you don't have, like I'm signed on to this gig for a year. You're constantly moving, you're constantly hopping, and you're trying to always find your next gig. So it's like knowing about how to be smart with your money, how to save your money, and like, having that because it's like I don't have a safety net, so I have to make sure that I am my safety net. So it's a great career to get into um, if you like are really passionate about, like I'm always going to recommend people be passionate about the product as opposed to the title because the people who are passionate about the title, they miss a lot of what it comes with. So it's like if you really care about like what you will be producing or like what you could be producing or creating in general, like for sure, like follow that, but understand that like it's not stable and it's not always guaranteed. So it's like you have to be really smart with what you do with like your finances.
Talk a little bit about the duration of jobs, because you said this one that you're on is for a year, but I know that we were talking earlier and you were saying sometimes usually jobs are like 6 to 8 weeks.
Yes. So majority of shows run 6 to 8 weeks. And then, you get certain shows that are on full time. So when I was on, another show, it goes for a very long time. And so you're on that show for like 9 months to like 11 months of the year. So it's like you're constantly working. And then, most shows when they're in like season 1, season 2 is like 6 to 8 weeks. And then the one I'm on currently, I'm slated to be on this for 3 months.
Okay. And so is it ever okay to, and this may sound funny or weird, but is it ever okay to jump ship on jobs to get
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to, but you have to be really smart with what you're doing, because you don't leave the company or the show in a bad position. But you also have to be honest with yourself about what you want and like about the relationships that you have created there. So for me, there are times where, yeah, I've had to jump shows in order for me to sustain and like continue to live in Los Angeles. So, there's some shows that will end in like October, but for us, like a downtime is between, Thanksgiving and New Year's. Like that's where it's like very hard to find shows that are staffing up.
How do you find your gigs? Like I know a lot, word of mouth, because you said it's about who you know.
Mhm.
But what if people or some folks who are trying to get into this industry, they don't know a lot of people. Like where can they go? Should they just Google AP jobs, film producer jobs? Should they, just go to Google?
There are websites, so there's like Staff Me Up and things like that, but I don't want to give anyone the misconception that you just start off as like an AP or field producer, because the first thing people are going to look at is your resume. They're going to look at credits. And then when they look at it, they're going to try to see like who they know that worked on that show and try to look at who your mutuals are and like what you've done. And that way they can get a feel for you. So it's like there are sites, there are, different things. It's like entertainment careers, there are different things. And then when you make more of a positive name for yourself, you get to a place where people recognize your work and are going to be like, hey, are you working right now? That's always the text. Hey, are you working right now? So
Are all of these jobs in LA? I mean, can people get these jobs in other places? Like what are some other hot spots besides LA?
they're the big three. So it's like LA, New York, Atlanta, and then you have like locations that still have jobs, but they're not as frequent. And so, there are things in like Miami, Nashville, Austin, and then every city, of course, there's like a production medium. So it's like you can find like production work, but it's just not as frequent. But those are the big three, and then you have the medium-sized three, and then everything else.
You brought something up. So you mentioned like smaller production companies. Okay,
Hmm.
so because I'm just trying to help folks out, because it's like some people that I know, like, okay, for instance, I know a couple of folks, right? When I told them I was going to interview you, they were like super excited. And the thing is, it's like they've done production assistants before. They've done like certain things that you say that you need to do starting out, but I feel like they're at
Hmm.
a crossroads right now where they're stuck and like they don't know exactly like where they should go. So for them, should they start out at smaller production companies maybe and trying to get their foot in there, that way they can try to get a name for themselves and try to build, just build up a name?
I'm a huge fan of that. I'm a very huge fan of that. That has worked great for myself and a lot of people. And it for sure is something I recommend. But some people want to jump in and they want to go ahead first. But it's like understanding that when you jump in head first, there's a lot of like glass ceilings out there. So it's like if I had started and just said like I want to work in scripted and I want to like start at HBO at this level, like I'd probably still be in the mailroom. I'm like, and that's the truth
No,
because I'm still newer. I'm 5 years in, like so I'm still new. I've just made a lot of mobility by starting small and working my way up.
mhm.
But then also it depends on your location. So it's like if these people are finding that, you know, like they've done a lot of work and it's not, they don't feel as though it's being recognized and it's in, you know, areas that don't have a lot of production work coming in, it's like it's your location. But
Okay.
it's also knowing what you want to create. So New York, you get a lot of work in news. Like in the reality circuit, you get a lot of work in news. In New York, there is some like reality stuff, but it's majority news in New York. Atlanta, you get more house reality stuff. So like housewives shows and things of that nature. Um, but Atlanta's opening up to be more of like in LA where you get more docu-series as well. LA, you get a lot of docu-series and of the like housewife stuff as well. Um, and then some news if you wanted to go into news. So it's like LA for me, when I was like trying to decide where I wanted to branch off and start my career, LA gave me the most opportunity because I had a little bit of all three while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to create and where I wanted to be and what my avenue was. So I chose the docu-series route.
You got my gears going. I'm like, I'm about to, should I switch over? I think switch over. I don't know. Like, I already told you how I feel. I need to be creative, okay? I cannot be put in a box. It bothers me. I get bothered. I need something that I can be creative. So I think I'm just about to fly my little self over there with you and we about to figure it out. I'm about to be like, look, tell me. Tell me. So you're over there and you're super humble, and y'all, Eddie, he is really like that, y'all. But I don't give a damn. We about to put him on blast just a little bit. So
Oh
again,
boy.
you don't necessarily have to tell us the shows. You told us some shows, but tell us some of the networks that you worked on, because I've been bragging about it and I don't care. So tell everybody the networks that you work with.
So I did some stuff for, I started off doing stuff for YouTube, then I went to E. And then for E, I did MTV, OWN, VH1, Netflix, E, VH1 again, and then currently Netflix.
Is that intimidating working for like some of these big companies? I mean, because a lot of the times, like you hear horror stories or like with employees, it's like, oh my gosh, like I did one thing and like I got fired for it. You know what I mean? Like people feel like they have to walk on eggshells. Like, so how is your experience like with some of these like big name companies?
I no, um, no.
No.
It's because like you have the parent companies, but then you have like the subsidiaries that like you work for. So it's like, yes, I'm working on a Netflix show, but the production company is someone smaller. So I'm not working directly for Netflix. So it's like it's easier. It doesn't make me feel like I have to walk on eggshells. I also don't ever want to feel like I have to walk on eggshells. So it's like it makes me want to, because like I love a balance. So it's like I have to be myself, but then I also have to, you know, be professional. So like I'm a trash talker, so I'm gonna talk my trash, but then I'm also gonna be like, all right, guys, so here's what we're doing today, blah blah blah, and I'm gonna break it down to my crew.
That works out. And so, if you don't mind, can we get a little personal, just a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So, I mean, working again in this industry, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. I mean, you've been working in LA, you've worked in Atlanta, and you know, just going back. I don't know if you're dating anybody, but is that difficult? Like just having a relationship in being in this type of an industry too?
Um, at times, at times, I've sacrificed a lot, a lot, a lot. Um, I've sacrificed relationships. I've sacrificed, you know, time with like my family in order to like have and to be where I am. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't trade it for anything though. Um, Only because I made myself promises. Um, and my promise to myself means a lot to me. because like ultimately I'm always going to be a man of my word. But my promise to myself is like what keeps me going. Like I can sleep peacefully at night knowing that like I did the best that I could at everything and I kept my word. And so like, you know, there are, you know, women that like I could not continue to date because of my career. There are people who sometimes can't handle the frequent travel and like, you know, you're always gone. And then there's like, you know, family time where it's like I'm missing out on like my nephew getting older, and then like like family birthday parties and like, you know, things like that. So it's like I miss a lot of family time. So there's a lot of sacrifice that comes along with like what I want to do. But I asked for this, I prayed for this since I was 12 years old. So it's like I can't be upset at the fact that my plate's full.
I just want people to know too that like, you know, working in TV, yes, it's cool and everything like that, but at the same time you are going to have to sacrifice a lot of things. And you know, there's going to be days when you're struggling to try to figure out how you're going to pay a fucking bill and everything like that. It's not always so cracked up to what people think. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's really, you have to be dedicated, you have to want it, you have, like, your heart has to be in it. And that's what I learned. So
For sure.
thank you for that. I appreciate it. So what are we looking at OPA? Like, I mean, do you want to stay as a field producer? I mean, I know you're always trying to work up, but do you feel like this is what you want to, where you want to stay ultimately? Or you're like, hell no, I have so much more dreams and aspirations?
Way more dreams and aspirations. I'm only on my second credit right now as a field producer. So I'm newer to the position. And yeah, of course, I'm gonna run through the ranks and I'm gonna have to do what I have to do in order to gain more experience. Ultimately, my end goal, I want to be the president of a company, one of the conglomerates, and I'm gonna do it. So, and it's like one thing I know about myself, and promises, and I promise myself that I'm gonna make that happen. So, it's gonna happen, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's all about, for me, making sure that Black people are being shown in a positive light, and that like our stories are being more than just, you know, crooks and villains and grimy or drug addicts or like that's not us. Like we are very passionate people, and it's about showing the various passions from like people that love anime to scientists to like people who love documentary. Like I want to like curate and like, you know, get the best content that I can for us, not specifically like where it's like, oh, this is Black only, but like, yeah, this is like it's for us, but like like everyone can watch, but like that little boy on that screen that you see, like, yeah, he feels that.
That's one of the reasons why I left news and created this show, because again, it was just like, it's a lot of us that are doing amazing things and you don't hear about it, and news doesn't really put that on there. So I felt like I had to be the pillar to put everybody on. And like you're doing something so amazing, so dope. Like just everybody that I talk to on this show, honestly, is just doing something super dope. And it's just, I don't know, I just get excited. So just thinking about it. So I can see it. You will get that. I believe it, claim it. You already know. And if you ever need a show to go on your network, just know, holla at me, because I'll put some shit together. You already know we gonna get it together, okay? So yes. Please, if anybody, first of all, before we even get there, before we even like shout out, I mean, just give like your Instagram and contact information if you're down for that. What would you say to those folks who wanted to get into this career in this field? You know, like what would be some like lasting words that you would say to them if they wanted to pursue, you know, just producing at any capacity?
What I once said to me is like how I have to, I have extreme confidence and it's something that has like helped me a lot. Um, so believe in yourself and like set your mind to something and go achieve it. And then while you're doing that, also be humble within yourself to know that you are not always right. And sometimes where you feel like you were the master, you were really the student. Um, and like always be a student, always be willing to learn, and then like go out and try. Like it's about throwing 1,000 ideas at the wall, knowing that only 12 will stick. So like really go out there and just try. Yeah, that's what I would want to hear.
One more thing. I'm sorry, and then I'm a shut it up. But one more thing, because you made a good point. Like, can you just kind of reiterate on the fact that everyone's not going to like your ideas, and sometimes you will
Mhm.
have so many ideas that won't work, but you have to keep going. Like, can you just reiterate? Because I know for you in that field, you probably have a notebook of shit and just, you know what I'm saying? You see?
It literally stays in my bed.
So talk
Um,
about that a little bit.
it I have I even have ideas that, I start and I cancel out. Um, ideas for like shows that I, start writing and I start like coming up with it and I'm like, I'll leave it alone for like 2, 3 months and I'll come back and I'll read it over again. I'm like, I see where you're going, but that wasn't good. How about you switch it to this? And then it just keeps ever evolving. So it's like not everyone is going to see the vision that you see. But if you have that vision and you know that like you have executed it to your fullest capacity, because in that moment, it's not always the fullest capacity. The seed of the idea is just that it's the seed, but understand that seeds have to grow in order to become what they are. And sometimes like things are breaking the surface and like we're trying to dig through it and then we're messing up its growth. So it's like you have to really, really, really like hone in, be patient with yourself, like understand that like it's not an overnight process. And like once you get those ideas and you start like really pushing through them, like things happen. And like once you get to a place where it's great, like you start with your friends, you start with your community, and you create that thing in order to like that way you have a product to show for like when you do meet someone who knows someone and you're talking about your idea and like you want to like put it out there.
Nice. Words from Eddie Elliott, y'all. I love that. So tell everybody where they can reach you if they want to chop it up with you a little bit. I mean, if you're interested.
Don't. No, sir. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Okay, y'all. He wants to.
Oh, on Instagram, you can find me one word, We Hate Eddie, WEHATEEDDIE.
Nice. And y'all can DM him, but don't think he's about to get y'all a job. I'm just gonna put that out there right now. Y'all needs to go out, become a PA, and work up the chain. Okay? And then once y'all get up there, maybe we'll
like,
see.
we'll cross paths for sure.
There you go. All right, thank you so much. And everybody, you guys know where to reach me on JSWTV on all your platforms, and do everything that you do on YouTube videos on this video. Like, share, subscribe, and everything else. And until next time, we're out.